Okay, shalom. Right, wonderful, wonderful lesson. This has been so exciting putting this lesson together for me because I've been having a look at things that I would never normally look at and trying to understand actually what is in the Torah and looking at things like the barley harvest cycle and all the different information that you can get from Torah sources, and then obviously external sources to Torah, like pictures and things like that you get off the internet from agricultural documents that to be found on the internet. So really interesting. I can't actually believe that I've enjoyed this, putting this research together and putting this lesson together, and I hope to do a few lessons because it's so significant, the things and the links and the wonderful revelation that you get through studying the concept of spring and Aviv as found within the Torah is unbelievable. It's really, really empowering, and it's really, really encouraging, to remember that we are entering, we're drawing close at this time to that time of redemption, the spring. It's all wonderful concepts. So today's lesson is Vayikra, Moshe, or Moshe, as some people have told me it's pronounced, Moshiach and the spring. And this is all to be found in the book of Vayikra. We're in this week's Torah portion is the beginning of the book of Leviticus. Okay, so it's Vayikra or Vayikra, whether you pronounce the Vav with a W sound, which I've been told is the authentic pronunciation, or a V sound. Okay, these are actual Karaite Jews. I don't follow Karaite Judaism, but these are Karaite Jews who actually determine their calendar based on the observation of the Barley cycle. When the Barley reaches what is considered the Aviv state of maturity. Let's go and have a look because this is absolutely fascinating. I'm going to first have a look and show you what I've been able to deduce regards what state the barley cycle what state of maturity the barley cycle must have reached in order for it to be declared Aviv. Okay, so you've got this particular statement from Leviticus 2:14, which is in this week's Torah portion, Vayikra. Okay, when you bring a meal offering of the first grains to the Lord, you shall bring your first grain meal offering from barley as soon as it ripens, parched over the fire, kernels full in their husks, ground into coarse meal. So I've highlighted two words there, Aviv, okay, and Carmel. Carmel basically means plump, okay, fruitful or plump. And that's why you've got this concept of the kernels full, okay, in their husks. And then the Aviv is as soon as it ripens, but really it's not fully ripe. Okay, there's a stage of maturity that it's got to reach. Okay, so anyway, here is some pictures of grains, and these are the various stages that the grains are called given the different stages of development. So it begins off at what's called the watery stage. Okay, goes to the milk stage, the soft dough stage, the hard dough stage, and then it goes to the ripening stage. Okay, so we've got to understand at what point do we bring these, at what point do we bring the kernels in here for the first fruit offerings. And you've got to take into consideration that Aviv means green and caramel means plump. So it's got to still have greenness but still have some plumpness. So I'm not going to go into an in-depth research into this concept because I've done the background and drawn this off, and I've also looked at what other people on different websites from a biblical point of view have had to say. So I'm just regurgitating what I've recently come across. I didn't know all this stuff until very, very recently. I knew that Aviv was to do with the barley, but I had no idea conceptually what that actually looked like. I just had this word Aviv, and I knew it was to do with the head of the barley had to be green. But I really didn't know it in depth enough. I'd not put all the Torah verses together and had a look, all right, what does this mean? Going back to the plagues when the barley was hit by the hail and things like that, and why the wheat wasn't, and comparing all these. So I've done a lot of background and really explored it. That's why I've enjoyed the research. So I'm just going to give you the basics now, what I've discovered from that. So we've got this, look. Aviv, kernels the plumpest, caramel and still green, possibly inferring an immature kernel that can father Av, a plant that will grow to produce fully mature seeds, approximately 10 days. The reason why I've said that is because when you go and have a look, let's go and have a look what Aviv actually means. So the Aviv meaning, they've got this off Chabad.org. So Aviv comes from the Hebrew word of Aviva or Aviha, literally translated as greenness, explaining that it means the month in which the grain fills out in its greenness. Aviv comes from the Hebrew word Av, literally translated as father, explaining that it means the first, farther and earliest month to ripen fruits. However, when I was doing the research, I got to go to a paper that was on the internet, this quite extensive scientific paper that was research done back in 1940s, and there was a PDF version of it that was able to access, and it was called the viviparous, immature growth of barley, barley kernels, or something along those lines anyway. And when I was reading it, it was saying the number of days after pollination with which these immature, basically when I read that it meant father here, I'm looking at the thinking father. So the Aviv, it comes from the father. Why would it be called a father? And it didn't make sense that it would be called a father because this is the father, the earliest month to ripen fruits. To me, I'm thinking, no, father is to do with producing offspring. Okay, so if Aviv means father, then it must have reached a specific capacity with which it can then produce offspring. This wasn't a satisfactory reason why Aviv would be called father. The only satisfactory answer to me would be if the Aviv means that it has reached a potential to actually produce plants. And when I was looking at immature plants, barley grown from immature seeds, and then I came across this particular research paper going back to 1949, I think it was, something like that. And then it said in there that the kernel can reach a place of maturity where it can grow plants from that particular kernel 10 days after pollination. So when the grain has grown for 10 days, it is able to, not consistently, but it has reached a place where it's able to actually produce offspring, produce a plant that then will grow on to produce fully mature seeds. Okay, so it's got the potential to be a father, in other words. It has at 10 days, that's kind of it says between 9 and 10 days. So it's reached this potential where it can actually father a plant that can then go on to develop. Even though it is an immature, very highly immature kernel itself, it will go on to produce sometimes plants that then can grow on to reach full maturity. And it says in another document I found this can occur in 3 out of 10 instances at that date. So obviously you mature a little bit further than that. Let's go back. So that would take us to 10 days is roughly this stage here, the end of the milk stage. So it's still green. It's got, then by the end of this stage, it's got the potential to be an Av. But it's got that, it fulfills the Av, but it doesn't fulfill the caramel bit because it doesn't reach its full plumpness until the end of this stage here, which is called the soft dough stage. And that's reached at about 15 days after pollination. So this is about 5 days after pollination, 10 days. It's going up in stages of about 5 days. Okay, we'll come to that later. So it's all very interesting stuff. So this reaches its plumpness here because then, and also it's still slightly green. But once it starts to go to this stage, it loses its greenness and it's starting to shrink. It's starting to shrink and lose water content rapidly. Why? Because when you come to harvest grain, you don't want it full of water because it would rot. So obviously the water content's got to diminish in order for the grain to be stored. without causing problems. Okay, so taking all these into consideration, you would think that Aviv, this stage at least, has got to be attained, and it's got to be this stage, but obviously this is post Aviv. You know, the greenness has been lost at this stage. So as once the kernel reaches this stage, then you're allowed to declare the following month after that as the month of Aviv, which is now called the month of Nissan, and the beginning of the first of the months of the year. Okay, so it's all interesting stuff, because let's just go and have a look at this, where it says it meets the condition of Aviv there. If Aviv was meaning father, and I can't find any biblical sources where it would mean that, but I mean, it's just, to me, it's just logical that if it's going to call a specific stage of development Aviv, and that means father, then it's got to have reached a certain stage of maturity where it could actually be a father. I hope you understand, but like I say, I've no biblical sources for that other than the meaning of Aviv means father. Okay, but like I say, in the research, that was my first thought when I read what the meaning of Aviv was. That was my very first thought, and that's how I led on to a research paper that confirmed that. But like I said, I haven't been able to find any biblical sources that Aviv means that it's reached a certain level of maturity where the plants could go on and be used to produce other plants. Okay, I haven't found that. Right, let's go and have a look at the next stage then, because this is even more interesting to me. Bearing in mind when Aviv comes, so Aviv was, you know, there's so many things, there's so many glorious things, it's really hard for me to contain it all, but, you know, going back to the fact that the commandment, the very first commandment that they were given, even prior to the Torah, was to observe the month of Nissan, the month of Aviv. So the observance of the new moon, the very first month of the year to them, was given whilst they were still in Egypt, because they had to observe the new moon, and then 10 days later they have to go get the lamb, and then obviously they've got to kill it, and then they've got to eat the Pesach and put the blood on the doors and things like that, and eat the matzahs. So it's a very, very critical commandment given to Bnei Yisrael whilst they're still in Egypt. You know, it's a preliminary commandment. So we can see how that's all linked up to this concept of spring, and all linked up to this concept of redemption, and all linked up to the concept of final redemption. And then, so we say, right, okay, so what determined then that first commandment? It's something to do with the cycle of the Barley, the Aviv. You know, when this stage has at least been attained, then that's your new month. Then that's your month of freedom. You're getting out of Egypt once and for all. You're getting out of exile once and for all. So you can appreciate it's highly critical, because one, it's connected to the concept of the moon, which is the concept of Moshiach Ben David, and we are awaiting his revelation. We are waiting the new moon to appear, the new kingdom of David to be established on earth. Again, you know, after this period of exile that we've all suffered in. So there's some wonderful things. In and amongst my research, on 2 separate occasions, I came across the fact that from pollination to complete maturity takes 26 days. I obviously found that there were variations to this, because the cycle under scientific test, you know, 1 year it's 26 days, the next year it's 27 days, and then obviously there's less favourable conditions, and it goes up to 31 days and things like that. So it does fluctuate, but twice in 2 scientific papers there was evidence that the cycle was 26 days. And that's the first one going back, the scientific paper going back to 1924, I found, and I'm pretty sure that that definitely 100% on one of the research papers that I read, it said that the cycle of the barley harvest from pollination to maturation is 26 days. So obviously 26, and all these things that we're talking about, you know, the concept of the Moshiach and the concept of redemption. And then being related to 26, which is the Gematria of the name YHWH, it makes a lot of sense to me. That something we're getting communicated something to us, even through the natural cycle of the barley harvest. It's very, very significant. It's communicating to something of importance, and also the fact that it's split into 5 specific stages, and these are basically intervals of roughly 5 days each. So let's go and have a look at what I deduced. So 26 days from pollination to maturity approximately, and like I say, there's different conditions, and obviously the introduction of different fertilizers and other processes alter that, but so we stick with 26 days. That was the very first scientific information that I got regarding this period of time. It stated it was 26 days, and I've since found much more modern scientific evidence to say that the cycle can be 26 days as well. So we've got this first stage. So that means if there's 5 stages in total, approximately each stage is a 5-day period. So 5.2 days per stage. Okay, which adds up to what it says, definitely. All the, even modern scientific, I watched, there was a university website and it listed it. It was really a very good university website, the development of the barley kernel. And it definitely mentioned the timings that I am going to put up. This coincides with the timings that you can get off the scientific papers and scientific information and websites. Okay. So 5.1 days, the first stage. Okay, stage 1. If we take the 5.2 and multiply it by 10, okay, it comes to 52, which is the ordinal of Moshiach. So basically, this is the seed that we are wanting to develop within us. Okay, so it's pointing at this particular concept of Moshiach, and we know through my teachings the importance of this, because it's through the Moshiach that we see the light of YHWH. Okay. And ultimately we've got to develop within ourselves that spark of Moshiach, our own spark of Moshiach, because through that spark of Moshiach developed within ourselves, we are able to illuminate within ourselves, with every thought, word and deed that we do, the very name of YHWH. We imitate his name, and it's through arousing that spark of Moshiach within us. So this is something that we have got to have, that seed within us planted, and it's got to go on to full maturation. So the 5.2 first stage, watery stage, and bearing in mind water is synonymous with Torah and chesed. It's an act of kindness that we have this potential. So then the next stage, it would be 10.4, this milk stage, where starch is starting to fill within the kernel, and hence turning it from watery into a more milky colour. It's still very watery, however, and very, very soft. So that occurs at about 10.4 days based on this approximation. That's stage 2. 10.4 multiplied by 10 is 104, and that's the ordinal gematria of he has surely been torn to pieces. Ach trof trof. Okay, ach trof trof. He has surely been torn to pieces, and this is Yaakov speaking about Yosef. So we've got this concept of the Moshiach, this seed that's been firmly planted. But then we've got this next stage where the concept of Moshiach is gone into exile, hasn't it? And it's for us to determine, to transform this reality where we are believing that the Moshiach Ben Yosef has died, Yosef is dead, and Yaakov is believing Yosef is dead. And all my teachings, I go on about this concept all the time. You know, Moshiach Ben Yosef in a state of exile with us, suffering, in order to develop with us, in order to bring out the lost holy sparks that are trapped within this exile, and in order for us to develop the concept of Moshiach within us, and to develop the name of YHWH within us based on the truth the Od Yosef Chai. So we're all going to exile, and we're all subject to the lies of exile, and we're all subject to lies regarding the concept of Moshiach. We've inherited these lies, and yet through the truth that is revealed in the Torah, which is the mind of God, we can gain an understanding of what's called the Moshiach of YHWH. And then through that, we can develop our understanding of Moshiach, and that should help us to develop and mature within ourselves, spiritually mature. And as we spiritually mature, we gain proximity to the name YHWH, and in that gaining proximity, we're also able to more clearly imitate the name YHWH in thought, word, and deed. Okay, so we've got this preliminary stage, this stage 3, this stage here, where it appears that the Moshiach is no more, or Yosef is no more, it's torn to pieces, but it's a necessary evil if you want to put it that way. And then we reach the next stage, which is called the soft door stage, and this is when, as far as I can understand biblically, and I've also come across, there are other biblical texts that point to this. Well, actually they say somewhere in between this is the Aviv, but I would say that this stage is the Aviv stage really. So at 15.6 days it's state 3, so it's 3 times 5.2, 15.6. So if you multiply that by 10, we get 156, we get Yosef. This is the caramel stage, the plum kernels. When we reach that stage, Od Yosef Chai, when we have got sufficient truth and we have sufficiently matured to this stage here, like I say, we can father a child. This stage will father a plant that has the potential to grow on it. It's a bit hit and miss. It's more often not than it producing a father 3 out of 10 times, I think it said in the research paper. But this one is received a maturity where it's more likely to be able to do that and be successful. Okay, but it's at its fattest. It's when it starts to shrink in order to be preserved for the harvest, So this is at its caramel stage, the plump kernels that are mentioned in Torah, when we have the truth regarding Moshiach Ben Yosef, Od Yosef Chai. And we know that Yeshua is linked to the Pesach, because he was the Pesach lamb, which takes us to the next stage. Because this next stage is the hard door stage, and this is where our understanding of Moshiach, specifically Moshiach Ben Yosef, and Moshiach Ben Yosef is related to this Aviv. You've got to understand, after this stage will come the wheat harvest, and from that you get the Shavuot loaves, which is the next festival on from Pesach. You've got in between the counting of Omer, which is related to this. The Omer offering was the barley sheaf. You've got to understand that this is related to the concept of Moshiach Ben Yosef. Okay, but it's very much linked to the concept of Moshiach Ben David, as we'll see. So stage 4, once the Aviv has been accomplished, and then you've got the first fruit offering, which is obviously you've got the Omer sheaf offering, which comes from barley, and that's when it's fully ripened. So up here, or somewhere in between this stage, depending on when the Aviv is declared, and then when you would have to wave the barley. Okay, so 20.8 days is this stage, which is Yitzchak. Okay, and Yitzchak is again, it's related to Yeshua and the Pesach, because Yeshua, Moshiach Ben Yosef, came instead of the ram. Okay, so this is even within the Jewish texts in Yalkut Shimoni. It says that the ram was not a ram, it was Moshiach Ben Yosef, and he had to go in to suffer with us in this exile in order to protect us from descending to beyond the 49th level of impurity. Okay, so Yitzchak very much connected to the concept of Moshiach Ben Yosef, basically. So that's the next stage in our development of our understanding of Moshiach Ben Yosef, isn't it? That not only did Yeshua live, but there was a very specific reason why he died. And he actually died and suffered in order to erase the darkness, to set an end to darkness. And there's different levels with which you can understand that the Moshiach is there to set an end to darkness. He sets an end to darkness because within Yitzchak, which is considered the left-hand side of divinity, that is where you get the harsh judgments that are contained within the Torah, and that those harsh judgments ultimately lead to death. And so even though Yitzchak needed to be bound, there was something about him that's obviously, especially from Abraham's side point of view, how Abraham symbolises chesed, loving kindness, and Yitzchak symbolises severity and harsh judgment. There's obviously something that is undesirable about Yitzchak that does need to be brought to an end. That darkness contained within Yitzchak that leads to a Torah that is full of harsh judgments that lead to death and destruction and exile. That needs to be brought to an end. Some provision has to be made within the Torah itself to bring that whole thing to an end. And the provision was made through Moshiach Ben Yosef. And how is that ultimately played out? Well, the Torah of Yeshua, the Torah of Moshiach Ben Yosef, that is from the level, a revelation of the name YHWH from the highest level possible, the level of Keter, the 13 attributes of mercy at the level of Keter, that is written in the book of Micah chapter 7, the 13 attributes of mercy that are written in there, as opposed to the 13 attributes of mercy, which is the Torah of Moshe, the name revealed within the letter of the Torah. Those two need to unite together, and the higher level of Torah needs to wash clean the lower level of Torah. And this is spoken about in the Zohar Parashah Nassau, where it talks about the all-seeing eye of mercy, the all-seeing eye of Keter washes clean the two eyes of Zerampin, and that's referring really to the Torah of Moshe that's filled with harsh judgments and things like that. So yes, the commandments are still kept, but they are washed clean of all the darkness that would lead to death and destruction and harsh judgments. Okay, so that aspect of it that symbolized is part of Yitzchak needs to be rectified. The Torah of Moshe needs to be rectified because within it are harsh judgments that leads to death. So some provision has to be made in order to wash that clean of the harsh judgments, and the provision was Yeshua, who symbolises the ram of Yitzchak. Okay, the ram that came instead of Yitzchak. Not only that though, it's about a unity. Like I say, we're talking about a unity of the name revealed above the Torah and the name revealed within the Torah of Moshe, the Torah of Yeshua, the stick of Yosef and the stick of Yehuda brought together as one to usher in Moshiach. So these is the ordinal of Moshe, that's the ordinal of Yeshua. Okay, and they come to 208. Which is exactly the same as Yitzchak. So this is the next level of maturity, to understand all these concepts. And they are major concepts, by the way. We're talking about, why did the Moshiach Ben Yosef have to suffer and die? Well, he had to suffer and die for different reasons. One or two aspects of our faith that needed truly rectifying: our faith in the Moshiach, not just the Moshiach of our own minds, but the Moshiach that is revealed in the Torah, and our faith in the resurrection of the dead. Okay, so without us seeing evidence that Yosef Chai, this is what will enable to us as belief in the resurrection of the dead, the power of YHWH to even resurrect the dead, to overpower death itself. Okay, that comes as a result of harsh judgments. This is part of the darkness of Yitzchak. So it's just the next level of maturity and understanding how we need to bring the name as revealed through Moshe and the name of YHWH as revealed through Yeshua together as one. They're inseparable. In order to overcome the power of Yitzchak and correct the defect that is within the Yitzchak, the death that leads to, the harsh judgment that leads to death, we've got to unite both Moshe and Yeshua together as one. Okay, it can't be just the Torah above it can't be just the name revealed above the letter of the Torah, and it can't be just the name revealed within the letter of the Torah. It has to be both united together. So that's the next level of maturity, isn't it? And then also this, look, Moshiach Ben David rectified with the additional Yod, and Moshiach Ben Yosef, the ordinal of that, add them together, both come to 208 as well. So we've got this concept of the unity between the concept of Moshiach Ben David and Moshiach Ben Yosef. This is the bird of redemption, isn't it? This is Moshe being the body of the bird, Moshiach Ben David being the left wing, Moshiach Ben David being the right wing of the bird. That's our love in our service to YHWH. Moshiach Ben Yosef being the right wing of the bird. And the numbers all tie up in the cycle of the Barley cycle. And then 26 days, the ripening, the ripening of the concept of Moshiach Ben Yosef should lead us to a revelation of the name YHWH, which is exactly what it should do. Okay, and then that takes us out, and then out of Egypt into a place of redemption, and then we're going through that process where we're receiving the Torah, and we reach Shavuot. We're counting the Omer, which is just more and more understanding. It's all deeply connected to a revelation of the name YHWH, all the counting of the Omer and the correcting of the defects within that revelation of YHWH within our lives. You know, the entire name fully unified within our lives to the potential that it can be through the concept of the Moshiach Ben Yosef primarily, but you can't have just Moshiach Ben Yosef without understanding how connected it is to the concept of Moshe, Moses, and also the concept of Moshiach Ben David. But then who was born and died at Shavuot? Moshiach Ben David. So Moshiach Ben David is the end of the Omer counting, isn't it? It's we get 49 days of Omer counting, which Omer is related to the Barley cycle and the waving of the Omer sheaf. And then we get the 2 laws at Shavuot, and that's when Melech David was born. He was born at Shavuot and he died at Shavuot. He was born at the day that we received the Torah and he died at the day that we received the Torah. So he's really Moshiach. Once Moshiach Ben David is fully revealed, then we will see the YHWH fully revealed also. Okay, it's the absolute revelation, isn't it, of the name YHWH. So it's all glorious. And this is why it's so exciting, because this is what's before us now. I mean, we're just in the second Adar, aren't we? We've had to, technically, this is all pre-calculated now since Hillel II. But, at one time it would have, the Barley hasn't reached this Aviv stage, so we'll have to add an additional Adar on. And I've done a lot of research into the solar lunar calendar recently, and all that's even fascinating and highly, highly messianic. Okay, so again, that's that. So we're in the second Adar basically, so coming up to Purim, where we erase Amalek, and then once we've erased Amalek, then we're going to enter into the period of Nissan or Aviv. And then that will lead on to our redemption. So it's all wonderful times that are coming up now. And then the whole book of Vayikra is pointing to all these major concepts. Why? And within Judaism, you're taught that the first Torah that you start to teach your children is the book of Vayikra. And I wonder why. Because within there is contained, the very beginning of it contains everything you need to know about the concept of Moshiach. The fundamental teaching of the entire Torah is the concept of Moshiach Ben Yosef. Okay, because through that you see ultimately the name YHWH fully revealed, and you see the ultimate goal of the Torah to bring about the establishment of the Davidic dynasty on earth again. Okay, that's where we're heading to, ushering final redemption. That is the entire Torah. But the ultimate entire Torah is a revelation of the name YHWH. Okay, that's where we ultimately leading. We're leading to a revelation of his absolute oneness and authority. And he will reveal that through the Davidic dynasty. Okay? So let's go back and have a look at this Vayikra. Okay, so this is the very first verse of Vayikra. Vayikra el Moshe Vaydeber YHWH Allow Mehel Moed Lemon. And he called to Moshe and he spoke, and the Lord spoke to him from the tent of meeting, saying. So really, really wonderful Gematria, but this is the regular Gematria 1455, the ordinary 321. We're going to be looking at both those numbers eventually. Together they come to 1776, which is 2 times 888. So straight away we've got a reference to HaMoshiach. HaMoshiach 888. This is HaMoshiach spelt out, each letter as it sounds. Okay, it's what's called a filling. So we've got, this is how it's written in the Torah, and I've pointed this out in previous lessons, but as you can see, the letter Aleph is diminished, and there's all kinds of reasons which suggest why it's diminished, and it's to do with the humility of Moshe. Moshe humbled himself. However, it also indicates the state of Moshiach in exile, how he's diminished, and the truth about him is not fully revealed. We have inherited lies, and it's for us to find the truth regarding the concept of Moshiach. And obviously Moshe is the first primary concept of the Moshiach. Okay, so this word Vayikra will eventually become Vayikra with an Aleph Gadol, and I've gone over this teaching many times, but I have actually added a couple of things to it this time. So Vayikra will eventually become Vayikra with an Aleph Gadol. So that means that the Aleph can be, it's the first Aleph, it's the first number of the Aleph bet, so its Gematria is 1, but it's also got a Gematria of 1,000, because Aleph does mean 1,000. The word Aleph means 1,000. So eventually this little tiny diminished Aleph will become the Aleph Gadol. Moshe's called the Aleph Gadol, and basically it's a coded message for the Moshiach. So it's a concept of Moshiach Ben David added to Moshiach Ben Yosef. I go through this all the time, every lesson, come across the number 1,000, because it's Moshiach Ben David 434 added to Moshiach Ben Yosef 566, which comes to 1,000. So ultimately, when this becomes 1,000, this first part is 316, so it will become 1,316. Okay, and we've got there the 1,000 is Moshiach Ben David plus Moshiach Ben Yosef. So the 316 of Vayikra is the concept of Moshiach Ben Yosef, diminished and suffering with us in exile. So this is the third stage, the Aviv, if you like, isn't it? Okay, and we want to get, no, that's the milky stage. This is the Aviv stage, and this is the full maturity, isn't it? We want to get there if we can. So Moshiach Ben David plus Moshiach Ben Yosef plus the concept of Moshiach Ben Yosef suffering with us in exile, the concept of Yeshu, which from a Torah point of view, not from a rabbinical Judaism point of view, because that is concealed with lies, Agadic lies, Agadic tales in the Talmud that are misinterpreted. Okay. 1,316 comes 2 times 658, very significant number. Why? Because the luminaries, which are synonymous with Moshiach Ben Yosef, Moshiach Ben David, the concept of the Moshiach, comes to, is written in the Torah without these two vavs. They're actually missing. It's what's called a defective spelling. We come across that laws. If it was written rectified with the two missing vavs that represent the truth about Moshiach Ben David, the truth about Moshiach Ben Yosef, so that this concept of Moshiach is not diminished, okay, in exile, but we've got the truth, which it says in the Tehillim, the truth sprouts from the earth, okay, from the land, and we're talking about the barley harvest. The barley harvest alone should reveal to us the truth, and everything that points to, the concept of the new moon, the concept of spring and the Pesach, and all the things that I've talked about. The truth should sprout from the earth. Literally, the barley harvest reveals the truth about Moshiach Ben Yosef. And the concept of Moshiach, the whole counting of the Homer and the whole first fruit offerings, everything of that is indicating to us the concept of Moshiach, the luminaries that ultimately must be rectified with the truth, because we've got diminished concepts of Moshiach, because we've inherited the doctrines found within the religions of our birth, or the religions that we've converted to, and these contain errors. And we've all got a work to do to sort the light truth from the lie. So luminaries 658 plus 73 is 731. Moshe plus Yeshua, 731. They are the luminaries that must be united together as one in order to reveal the truth. This is part of the stage of maturity, isn't it? That was the fourth stage of maturity. Once we've established the concept of Moshiach Ben Yosef and seen that come fully developed, the wheres and the wherefore, the what's and the who's, and the answered all the questions regarding Moshiach Ben Yosef, basically, we then reach the next level of maturity where we're understanding that Yeshua has come instead of Yitzchak, and this unity between Moshe and Yeshua erases the darkness that is inherent within Yitzchak, that is revealed in the Torah of Moshe, the harsh judgments, etc., and the darkness that must be brought an end to. Okay? And it's only when you unite those two together that is accomplished, and it's only when you unite those together can you reach that place of maturity where Ham or Oth become fully rectified and revealed. This is connected to this concept, Nikmath Dam. A lot of blood has been shed through not understanding the concept of Moshiach, because it's led to a lot of lies that create separation. Like from the Christians, they have killed a lot of Jews in the name of Yeshua because of their misunderstanding of who Yeshua was. The Jews have created a lot of separation and hatred towards the Christians because they're ignorant, based on the lies that they've inherited regarding Yeshua and regarding the concept of Moshiach Ben Yosef, and they've got a work to do regards that. The Muslims too have spilt a lot of blood because they perceive that they've got the ultimate truth, and they have got within their teachings a lot to say about who and what Yeshua is, etc. Some of it's the truth, some of it's lies, and the lies cause blood to be spilt. The servants' blood of the servants of YHWH is their blood to be spilled. That will need to be revenged, and I've said this, I say it a lot. The only sufficient way to avenge that blood is through a revelation of the name YHWH, because only when we have the name YHWH revealed through the concept of Moshiach can we stop. Will we unite as one, and we will stop killing each other based on our false understanding of Moshiach. That's what kills. That's what causes death and destruction. So we've got to revenge that blood, and the only sufficient way is through a revelation of the name YHWH. That comes through a revelation of Moshiach, the Moshiach of YHWH. And as we can see, that's linked up there again. So we'll just this bit up here. He made an end to darkness. He made an end to darkness. What darkness? The darkness that is found within the Torah of Moshe that leads to death and destruction and harsh punishment and exile. That needs washing clean with the Torah of Moshe, Torah of Moshiach Ben Yosef. Okay? And also the truth. So we've got two vavs missing. Emeth is missing, truth, and Wehemeth, which is one of the Wehemeth is one of the 13 attributes of mercy. Truth is the attribute of mercy revealed within the truth is a right. Let me say this properly. So there's two lots of 13 attributes of mercy. There's the one revealed within the letter of the Torah that was revealed to Moshe when he was put in the cleft of the rock. There's the 13 attributes of mercy as listed in the book of Micah. Both of them have a concept of the name, one of the 13 attributes of mercy being linked to truth. One of them is give truth to Yaakov. Okay, that's in the higher level. Give truth to Yaakov, Emeth to Yaakov. And then the other one is kindness and truth. Okay, that's to be found within the Torah of Moshe, and it's written exactly like that in the book of Exodus, Emeth and truth. If we had that 441 and 447 together, we get 888. Okay, I've decided to add a couple of verses in to highlight this for you with the 13 attributes of mercy. First of all, we've got these from Micah, which these are part of the 13 attributes of mercy as revealed in there. Titen emeth li Yaakov. give truth, emeth, and as we can see it's spelled exactly the same as emeth, truth, to Yaakov, chesed le'Avraham, loving kindness of Abraham, which you swore to our forefathers from days of yore. So these are part of the 13 attributes of mercy as revealed in the book of Exodus. And then YHWH passed by and said, Adonai, Adonai, al-Rachum v'chanun, erech apayim v'rav chesed v'emeth. So there's some of the attributes of mercy there, look. Okay, and it continues on. So you've got v'emeth and truth, exactly the same there. So this is a unity between the name revealed within the 13 attributes of mercy up here, which are higher, and it puts truth before loving kindness in these, whereas loving kindness comes before truth within the 13 attributes of mercy as revealed within the book of Exodus. Okay, so these are at the letter of Keter, and this is at the, which is the tip of the Yod, which is the Yechida, which is the soul level of Moshiach Ben Yosef, and this is at the letter Vav, okay, of the name YHWH. Okay, and we need to cleanse that with the truth, or Yosef Chai, that is the truth that is given to Yaakov, who symbolises that letter Vav, YHWH, and Moshe is very, very much linked to Yaakov, you know, okay. And then finally we've got this. However, as surely as I live and the glory of YHWH fills the earth. When will that happen? When we unite? When this is revealed. The blood is avenged in a good way. We've got unity of all these concepts, and finally His glory will be revealed, that everything that's happened in the entire of creation, what's happened in the Christianity, what's happened in the Edomite exile, what's happening with the Ishmaelites, the Muslim people, what's been happening with the Jewish people, and all the antagonism and all the blood spill is for an ultimate purpose, and the lies we've inherited are so that we can do a work below to reveal the truth that sprouts from the earth, you know, i.e. look at the barley that also sprouts from the earth, that reveals the concept of Moshiach Ben Yosef. Okay, then we see the glory of YHWH fills the entire earth, and there's nothing in this world that we can look at that we can point and say YHWH's glory is not there, because there's no evil anymore. It's all we're looking through the eyes of the name YHWH, and we're seeing that everything has had a purpose, everything has had a meaning, because everything has given us a work to do in order to be co-creators to bring about that final redemption. Okay, it's all utterly and absolutely glorious. Okay, I think we'll go start and look at this number now. So obviously we're talking about highly messianic concepts, aren't we, with all this? So now let's go see how this relates to Moshe, and this is the luminaries rectified. Okay, this is the state what it should be in. But prior to that, there's a diminishment, and we know that diminishment is represented when the letter Vav is missing. Okay, because the letter Vav represents emeth, the truth. Okay, truth about the Mashiach. So let's go and have a look how this number relates. We can see how it relates to the concept of Mashiach. So we've got these fillings of Mashiach, bearing in mind what I've just said. Let's just bring them all up so we know where we can see. So straight away we can see we've got Moshe filled like that. That's the name Moshe, or Moshe. We've got Moshe to the first filling. That comes to a regular 450. And then Moshe to the second filling, and as you can see in the letter Nun, and I've done this with all the major fillings of names, you know, like I've done one series where it's got the Nun included, like i.e. the truth, the full revelation, and I've also got it in a diminished state, because we've seen how the little Aleph represents Moshe. So this is really how it's linked to the concept of Moshe, still within exile. Moshe is within exile, within the Erev of exile, to bring all those souls trapped within there to full maturity ultimately, but he's suffering until that time happens, and hopefully to prevent them also from falling to the 49th level of impurity. So we can see this is definitely a revelation of Moshe to the second filling. There's all kinds of numbers. This will come back because we're going to go and have a look how spring is related to this number as well, Moshe, and everything we've been talking about with spring YHWH is actually related to this number. We'll see that later. Okay, so we've got the fact that 1455 is clearly related to Moshe. And we've also got this here. This is all the ordinals added up. Comes to 5 times 57, which is 5 times HaMoshiach. So again, we've got that link up here because this verse comes to 2 times HaMoshiach spelt out. Okay, so this is HaMoshiach as it's just normally spelt. And so Moshe ordinally also comes to HaMoshiach. And this is us knowing that Moshe is an umbrella term for Moshiach. So we can see how significant Moshe is, and this number, especially even when it's in a diminished state, it's very significant because it's going to bring us to that point of maturation ultimately, where the Barley is fully matured, and then even beyond that, the counting of the Omer that comes after that leads on to Shavuot, the giving of the Torah itself in full, which is a revelation of the name YHWH. And we see now that's a unity between the two revelations that we have at this time in this world that need united together as one stick in order to usher in the one shepherd who is David. So we've got this number. We'll have a look at some more numbers that are based around this. So here again, how it's all linked to spring, because this is the commandment from Deuteronomy: keep the month of spring. And as you can see, Shamor et Chodesh Ha'aviv. So this is talking about the month of spring, and it's called Ha'aviv. It says keep the month of Ha'aviv, the Aviv, the Barley, linked to the barley harvest, and make the Passover offering to the Lord your God. For in the month of Aviv, Ha'aviv, in the month of the Aviv, the barley maturity, the Lord your God brought you out of Egypt at night. Okay, so this is us entering into states of redemption. The Mispar Gadol of this, and I've talked about the Mispar Gadol number, is the Mispar Gadol numberings are connected to that exact moment where the sea splits. Okay, I've pointed this out when I've gone through the teachings of the coffin of Yosef that caused the sea to split. Like the sea saw it and fled. What did it see? It saw the coffin of Yosef. What did that coffin of Yosef? What did it really see? No, it split on account of the merits of Yosef, and we can see that projected into the situation we're in now. What's going to cause the sea to split for us to enter into final redemption? The merits of Moshiach Ben Yosef, who is Yeshua. Okay, who was carrying the coffin of Yosef, Moshe. The two need to be united as one. That's what ultimately caused the sea to split. It's the unity of Moshe and Yosef together, Moshe and Yosef together. Okay, so Mispar Gadol numbering is based, it's linked back to that. And if you were interested in finding out why, then you need to go and analyse, and it's to do with the total values of the Mispar Gadol of all the books of the Torah. It's ultimately connected to that and the seesaw and fled, which indicates a unity between Moshe and Yosef. Okay, so the Mispar Gadol. All these numbers are wonderful, but we're looking at this specifically. 6,111, which is the Mispar Gadol and the Mispar Gadol ordinal, which comes to 7 times 873, which is 21 times 291. So we see that link up to Moshe, up to Vayikra, and spring. So we've got Moshe, Moshiach, spring. It's all one concept. It needs to be utterly understood and united. It's part of our maturation that's essential before redemption. It says, today you are going out in the month of spring, Ha'aviv. So again, we've got Ha'aviv, and all these numbers are wonderful, honestly. I hope to do more analysis, but all these is just wonderful. That's Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, for example. But we've got, if we add them together, the regular and the ordinal, we'll get 1,164, which is 4 times 291. So again, it's all about this concept. 291 linked right back to Vayikra. Okay, and the concept of Moshiach. And then we've got this, Shemesh, the sun. So obviously, I've We've got the concept of the sun. Why? Because the Aviv, this is where the solar lunar calendar comes in as well. It's not just a solar calendar, it's not just a lunar calendar, it's a combination of them both. I think I'll go and I'll show you that, because I want you to be very, very aware. There's a lot of doctrine that's luring some really wonderful Christians away that have been told that Aviv means the equinox. My own friend has been subject to this. This is why I'm so passionate about it. She's a wonderful, wonderful holy woman, and her, and along with lots of other people of the house of Yosef, true Torah keeping believers, are lured into the desert with these false doctrines regarding solar calendars and stuff like that. But the sun has a part to play. Okay, sun comes to 640, 55 ordinally. That comes to 695. The square ordinal of Shemesh is 1051. If you add them both together, this number and this number, goes to 1746, which is 2 times 873, which is 9 times 241, which links us back to this and all what we've talked about, and the spring. So the spring is determined by the sun also. Let's go and have a look. So this is what I found on Chabad.org to just show that it's a solar lunar calendar. But it's so this is within Orthodox Judaism. Okay, to just allow you to understand that it's only once in a solar calendar that the Aviv Barley matures. It's only once per solar calendar that this is that this happens. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why. But obviously then we've got to take into account the cycles of the moon, which determine what the months are. You know, the renewal of the moon determines the renewal of the month. And I've done a teaching on this, if you're not sure. 14 verses within the Tanakh and Torah and Ketuvim that indicate very clearly and explicitly that it is the moon, the Yereach, that determines the month. So there's 14, is not ambiguous at all. The months are determined by the cycle of the moon, the years by the cycle of the sun. So this is it in terms of the calendar that we have at this moment, which is predicted as a result of problems that occurred that could have meant that the calendar was no longer observed. When you think about how important it is to maintain that calendar, and the threats to Judaism at the time from external forces, and the result of the exile into which we've all been exiled, you know, there's lots of factors that caused this calendar to be predicted, so that there would be no ambiguity as to when the new moons and the years would be. However, that is not thoroughly biblical based, but it was because of the threats to them keeping the Hebrew calendar. Something had to happen, okay, and the calendar was instituted in Hillel II. So you've got to understand, we don't no longer go out into the fields to check to see if the barley has matured. And there's problems even with that, because technology now means that cycle can be advanced, and literally the Aviv is happening in February within Israel. There are observations of Aviv, this Aviv stage of the barley being occurring in February, which would, and you know, there's been changes in the actual technology and that are used in order to hasten up this barley cycle. So there's all kinds of problems. So we're going on a predictive calendar. It's not based on the Aviv at the moment, but it's good to know. It's good to know everything we possibly can about the situation that's before us. Okay. Why am I looking at this? To show that the sun it plays a part in determining what the calendar is within Judaism at this time. But it always did. Like I say, the barley cycle happens once every year, once every solar year. Okay. The Torah commands us guard the month of spring and then make the Passover offering. This is a directive to the Sanhedrin Rabbinical Supreme Court to constantly adjust the calendar and ensure that Nissan, Aviv, the month of the holiday of Passover, always falls during the spring season. This is accomplished through 13-month leap years, which are added to the calendar approximately once every 3 years. They were always added. Okay, this is not something new. They were always added. Even whether it was the Aviv that determined the beginning of the month of Aviv, or whether it's this predicted calendar. During these years, the second month of Adar was added to the calendar, and we're experiencing the second of Adar this year. We're in a leap year. While the Sanhedrin presided in Jerusalem, there was no set calendar. They would evaluate every year to determine whether it would be declared a leap year. Several factors were considered in the course of their deliberations. The primary factor, which overrode all others, was the spring equinox. If the spring equinox would fall later than the first half of Nissan, so this is where I'm pointing to that even with the Aviv, there was still consideration for the sun, because obviously the spring equinox is the cycle of the sun. It's not the moon that determines the spring equinox. Okay, so if the spring equinox would fall later than the first half of Nissan, i.e. on the 16th or later, then the year was automatically declared to be a leap year. That's why I'm connecting it back to the sun. But we also know that the sun is symbolic for Moshiach Ben Yosef. Moshiach Ben David is symbolised by the moon. Okay. However, if it wasn't enough for Passover to fall after the equinox when it was officially spring-like conditions needed to be evidenced in the land of Israel. The barley had not yet ripened and the trees were not yet blossoming. The seasonal fruit, that too was sufficient reason to delay Nissan by adding a second month of Adar. Spring should be felt. It should be bright and green. There were also several non-seasonal related factors which the Sanhedrin considered. For example, if the roads of the bridges were in disrepair due to the winter rainy season, impeding the ability of the pilgrims to travel to Jerusalem for Passover. In the 4th century CE, the sage Hillel II foresaw the disbandment of the Sanhedrin and understood that we would no longer be able to follow a Sanhedrin-based calendar. So Hillel and his rabbinical court established a perpetual calendar which is followed today. This calendar is comprised of 19-year cycles, each cycle containing 7 leap years. This calendar will remain in effect until Moshiach will come and re-establish the Sanhedrin. Okay, that's taken from Chabad.org. So let's go back just to understand that the sun is definitely part of the calendar, but it's not the whole of the calendar. Okay, it's not the whole of the calendar, like what people have gone astray believing at this time. Then we've got this one, Ad Yikveh Hamelech, until the king's wine cellar. That comes to 291. 102 ordinally, which is Emunah, and then together come to 393. 393 is the regular and ordinal of Shiloh, and I've gone through that loads. If you wanted to go through that, I've done one recently, a video recently, until Shiloh comes, and that goes through the entire concept of Shiloh, and it's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Okay, it's a really interesting video, and it's a really interesting concept, and it helps us build up that entire concept of Moshiach that we are being indicated to in all this. Okay, so this is taken from this verse from Zechariah 14:10, wonderful verse. The whole world shall be changed to be like a plain from the hill of Rimmon, which means pomegranate, in the south of Jerusalem, but Jerusalem will be elevated high and remain in its old place, from the gate of Benjamin to the place of the first gate until the corner gate, and from the tower of Hananel until the king's wine cellar. Also, this number here is very much related to this. If you was to add a Kalel to this, a Kalel representing Aluf or Shal Alam, the Aleph, the master of the universe, it would come exactly the same to this, 1165, which is 5 times 233. What is 233? 233 is Eitz Chaim, the tree of life. The tree of life, which is the name YHWH. And we need to get that back. We need to understand what the tree of life is, the full revelation of the name YHWH, as is what we've been talking in this teaching, to get us back to the status of Gan Eden, which is that number there. So it's very much linked even to this, through this number, and then back to all that we've been talking about. And we've got this, which is extremely interesting. Yeshua Hanotzri, okay, comes to 747. This is we're going to look at this number because you've got to understand it in context of basically, and in unity with Moshiach, with Moshe, sorry. So 126 ordinarily together come to 873. Each 873 we've seen is 3 times 291, so linked to all these. Okay, let's go and have a look at this because it's wonderful stuff. Right, so these, I'm going to go through this very quickly because I go through this a lot. These are the 5 types of Erev Rav. The Negara, this is the exile into which Moshe is exiled. Okay, you've got the 393 there, so this is the evil opposite the concept of Shiloh that I've just talked about. This is the regular spelling of the 5 Erev Rav. Okay, so this is the Mispar Gadol, the big numbering of the Erev Rav. Okay, so if we take these together, the normal, the regular and the ordinal, and then the Mispar Gadol regular and ordinal, if we add them up together, the ordinals for a start, so 401 plus the full ordinal, 346, it comes to 747. 747 is Moshe, the man of God, which comes to 747. Okay. We've got another incredible connection here, look. Because, oh no, just wait a minute. Where did we get that? Oh yeah. Moshe, the man of God, has got an ordinal of 117, which is exactly the same as the spelling out of Yeshua. This way, the way that it's spelled out, the ordinal of that. Contradiction, to deny the truth by asserting the opposite. So this is what the serpent manages to do, doesn't he? He manages to convince the Jews that Jesus is not Moshiach, and the Christians are convinced that Jesus is not a Jew, a Torah-keeping Jew, and lots of the concepts regarding the Moshiach Ben Yosef are obscured within all the religions. By asserting the opposite, they actually do assert the opposite. So it's a contradiction, but we've got to take that contradiction and reveal the truth from that asserts the opposite. 747. I've put there 72. 72 times 4 is 288, and that's the holy lost sparks within exile that need to be redeemed by the Moshiach. And then obviously we've got this number is also Yeshua HaNotzri. Yeshua. This is what you call a Christian in Judaism. They're called Notzrim. It really comes from the root to guard. Okay, so they are guarding what? Guarding the concept of Moshiach Ben Yosef, but more than that, they're guarding the name YHWH has been revealed to them at the higher level of mercy. Why did they have that revealed to them? Because they were in much greater exile and in need of it. They were in much darker, deeper exile, cut off completely and had no merit according to Torah. So they needed a revelation of the name YHWH to redeem them above the letter of the Torah, because they had no merit within the letter of the Torah. And that's indeed what they did receive. Moshe ben Amram, exactly the same. 747. Moshe, the man of God. Yeshua HaNotzri. It would appear that Yeshua contradicts Moshe and Moshe contradicts Yeshua. They do not. United together, they are the fulfillment of. They are the revelation of the entire name of YHWH. They are not a contradiction. It's all wonderful stuff. And then we've got Yeshua filled with a Vav, and as you can see here, it's got the missing Vav from the Nun again. Okay, just as we had for Moshe, and just as we've been talking about, we have got to find the truth. We have got to find the truth. The truth sprouts from below, like I say, and it's very much like the barley. The whole cycle of the barley should point us in the right direction to receiving that truth. And then correcting this. So where do we get these numbers from then? The 479, let me find where that comes from. And that's all the ordinals added up. So 53, 118 and 308 come to 479. That's all the regulars added up. So the 386, the 523 and the 1334. That's very significant. Do you know why? Because that's a number that's associated with, and the sea sought and fled, and a number associated with all the Mispar Gadol numberings. Okay, it's linked to that. It's wonderful. It's in the teaching that I did about Yosef in his casket. So if we add those up, if we add the 479, the ordinal, and the regular up together, it comes to 2,772. 2,772 is linked up to this number up here, isn't it? So we've got the full regular of the Erev Rav, the full odd regular of the Erev Rav here, and if we add that and that together, it comes to 5,544, which is 2 times 2,772. So the concept of Moshiach Ben Yosef, diminished within exile, is the wholly opposite, all these evil forces united. He's the wholly opposite. His suffering in his diminishment, in order to bring in the lost house of Yosef, in order to bring in that final unity between Moshe and Yeshua. So even in his diminished state, it's utterly glorious, and it's linked to him overcoming the power of the serpent, which is the lie, And ultimately what tips the balance is the truth. 1,386 is Yeshua plus Moshiach Ben Yosef plus Moshiach Ben David. Okay, you can see how that's linked. And then we've got a link to the tree of life. We've already come across that concept, haven't we? The whole serpent is there, concealing the tree of life. Concept of the tree of life. I think it's Yosef Joshua that's opposite that. Like we've got here, look, Joshua the son of Nun, a lad would not depart from the tent. So that comes to 1,797 plus 300, which is 2,097, which is 3 times 699. So we can see a link to that up there. And it's 9 times 233. And we know that Joshua is an appellation for Moshiach Ben Yosef, because the Vilna Gaon told us that. So we can see that wonderful link up there to the tree of life again. Okay, let's go back. Right, so I think we've covered all that then now, haven't we? I hope you're starting to build up a wonderful picture of exactly what's going on. Let's have a look what this is then. Okay, so we're just going to delve a little bit further into some of these numbers. Alright, we're going to look at the concept of the spring. So obviously we've got these 2 verses. We've just been looking at it. Let's just go back so we're clear. Right, so I've pointed out that we're going to be looking at the spring. Today you are going out in the month of spring. So we want to have a look, well, what exactly is this Aviv then? If that's when we go out, we want to know as much as we can about it. And obviously we can start to see, oh, this is very significant, because look what we've got before us with these numbers. And we want to know as much as we possibly can. So we're going back to these 2 verses about Aviv. Now we just need to look at Aviv. What is it? The spring. So that's the regular and the Gematria, the regular and the ordinal. They're the same because all the numbers are under 10. The first 10 letters of the alphabet, so they are the same. And then we've got 134. Just wait a minute. Let me just have a look at that. Okay, so I've just brought it closer and I've just put a gap between those. So regular, ordinal, and that's a square ordinal all come together, 174. Just to point out, the new moon is 312 regular plus 33 ordinal, come to 345. Alright, there's a reason why, because it's linked to Moshe, and we're talking about the new moon is determined, the spring is determined by the new moon, isn't it? Aviv determines the new moon that is the month of redemption, Aviv. Okay, so it's connected to Moshe. I just wanted to point that out. I said we'd come back to this number, didn't I? So we've already looked at one of these numbers to do with this spelling out of Moshe with a defective spelling, because it's missing the letter Vav between the Nun. So just like the luminaries are missing the Vav in the Torah, right? But if we add up this number, and this number, which is the regular and ordinal of all these, it comes to 1,740. So again, we've got that link back to Moshe. And Enoch walked with God. So I've done loads of teachings on Enoch and Metatron. Okay, this is the necessary evil, if you like, the state where we are in exile and the whole system is not running according to its full capacity, where we are able to receive a full revelation of the name YHWH, because we haven't revealed the truth and we haven't revealed the full concept of the Moshiach, and we haven't corrected all what we've needed to correct it, and we haven't gathered in all the holy names that we've gathered in. So prior to that, we've got, like, instead of having messianic consciousness, that leads to a complete total revelation of the name YHWH. We've got metatronic consciousness, and Metatron was Enoch, and it leads to us not always seeing YHWH, like we actually can exist and not perceive that his entire glory fills the entire of the world. We're living in a state where the name YHWH is concealed from us. He's not fully revealed. The evil conceals it. The evil doesn't reveal it. Only when we attain full messianic consciousness does the evil get transformed even into a revelation of the name YHWH. So, and we in this system, we perceive that YHWH is changing constantly. Oh, if we do this, we please him, and this happens, and it's good. And if we don't do this, well, something, if I do this, it'll make him happy, and if I do this, it won't make him. YHWH doesn't change at all. So that is not the truth. It's just what we've learnt and what we start to believe because we've inherited lies. We've inherited lies about the Moshiach, so we haven't got full messianic consciousness, and we aren't able to fully perceive YHWH. So we actually think that he changes, but he doesn't change. He's always ultimately good. He's always kind. He's always forgiving. He's always gracious. He's always merciful. Okay, his plans are only good, but we are not able to perceive his name clearly because we're trapped in this very immature, exilic state of mind. And the lies and the delusion and the deception overwhelm the truth. So our evil inclination overwhelms our good inclination, and because of that, we're not able to fully perceive YHWH. But one good thing come in, and Enoch was no more. And that's also the same as he sets an end to darkness. The regular is 888, what we've already just covered, but the ordinal is 123. This is the darkness, isn't it? That we've got like an operating system that is based on the actions, thoughts and words of man, and when man chooses to do evil, he actually does affect in some way the revelation of the name YHWH. But this is not the ultimate system. The true system, the true big cog. This is what's called the system of reward and punishment. But there's a bigger system, a system of perfection that's linked to the concept of Moshiach Ben Yosef, where YHWH is in a very hidden way perfecting the entire of creation to be able to receive a revelation of his complete glory. Okay, so we're in that system now, but in the meantime we suffer in this Enoch system, this metatronic system, until we fully regate, until we've fully woken up from our exilic coma and our exilic slumber and fully started to comprehend the concept of the Moshiach. And then Metatron or Enoch was no more. That whole system is no more. We're in a system of YHWH in his absolute supreme authority, revealing his name, independent of the actions of men, the actions, thoughts and words of men. He will not, you want to choose evil, it will not matter, because YHWH, when he decides that we've reached the level of perfection that we needed to reach, you see this, I'm going on to shut down and I'm booting up with this new system where my name is revealed in a just because of my attribute of loving kindness, because I decide and I'm determined with my absolute authority that this is what will be done. And there's no evil in this world that can prevent YHWH from revealing his name as he wills to reveal it. Okay, there's no evil. The entire system of reward and punishment that is the only system that allows and permits for evil was designed by him so that he could operate in a very hidden way, and he's operating in a very hidden way because he expects us to seek the truth. Not just to be, what's handed to us on a plate, all these lies, and to spend our days eating these lies that we've been fed since we were children. We're accustomed to the flavour of these lies, the taste of these lies, and we fill our bellies full of it. We're supposed to have the spiritual maturity to be able to discern that this can't possibly be right, because it's not aligning with actually what's happening in the real world in which we are living. And this real world in which we are living, certain things are happening, and these lies are not sufficient answers to the things that are actually happening in the world in which we live. So we need to open our eyes and wake up, put two and two together. Okay, we came across that number there, look. It's linked down here, isn't it? Today you are going out the month of spring. A king reigned over the children of Israel. This is taken from Genesis 36:31. It's talking about the kings of Edom before the king reigned over Israel. So there's all kinds of things that could go over. We're in the process of rectification, basically rectifying Esav, our outer nations. You know, and that happens at the macrocosmic level in our own lives. You know, our soul is like our inner Israel, our inner Yaakov, and our body is our outer Esav. We've got to subdue our Esav to the side of holy, because both body and soul united together need to worship YHWH as one. Okay, but before a king reigns over Israel, guess who reigns? Our outer nations. And that, what happens in the microcosm is reflected also in the macrocosm. So that means the Edomites dominate over the Bnei Yisrael, but that won't always happen. What is the difference between Israel overpowering Esav or Esav overpowering Yaakov? Well, it's very simple. If the lies of your life overpower the truth, then Esav will overpower you, because Esav represents the lie. If the truth regarding the concept of Moshiach is revealed in your life, and you've accepted that truth, then your soul is sufficiently powered to overpower your outer Esav. It's as simple as that. The difference between the king over Israel and the king over Esav dominating or Israel dominating is the truth. So 813, 174, so it's related over here, the spring, and a king reigned over Israel. We want to see that accomplished. And again, that is related down there. It's not the only way. This is a wine preserved in its grapes. So this is talking about our ultimate reward. And this is the code name for the ultimate reward that's mentioned in the Talmud. Zeyayin shomar. Basically, this is the wine preserved in its grapes. And that's in the grapes. So this is taken from the Talmud, and it's a concept of our final reward. Okay, we want to enter into that final place of final reward. Okay, where Yisrael is king over the nations. Our body is finally subdued to holiness. It knows its place, it knows its place because it's only subject. So our body will only submit to the truth. Our body can only submit to the truth. Okay, it's the truth that overpowers the illusion. Okay, that empowers our body to rule over our soul. So we've got to get it in the right order. And as we can see, that is linked up there in every way. The final reward is where our soul dominates, because when our soul is basically the name YHWH revealed fully within us, or the soul of the spark of Moshiach revealed fully within us, or the soul of Moshe revealed fully within us, or the life of Yeshua revealed fully within us. It's when we give birth to Moshiach within ourselves. Again, it's about the unity of Moshe and Yeshua, because we've got this filling out of Moshe, filling out of Yeshua added together. This is the highest level of filling, where the Vav is filled with the Yud and the He is filled with the Yud. It goes to 897. It's the same thing over and over and over and over again, whichever way you look at it. And the heel of my foot. So, and the heel, this is taken from Talmud as well. This is the heel of the Moshiach, basically, isn't it, that gets bitten by the serpent. What is the serpent that bites? The serpent is the concept of the false Messiah. I've talked about that quite a lot. So that's linked up to spring, the heel. Yeah. Fear not, O worm of Yaakov. Okay. So 1740. I've gone through this as well. The whole concept of the worm, like as in the Shmir worm, it's just synonymous with truth. I've done this before. It's indicating it's truth that builds up the temple, because the Beis Hamikdash was built and there was no iron implements allowed to be used to build that temple, and because it could have been indicating like a sword to cut the stone, and this was not acceptable to build the holy temple. So these little worms were used to cleave the stone instead. And because obviously Esav represents the sword, he's a man of war kind of thing. So that was not allowed to build the temple. So it was the Shmir worm that built the temple, but Shmir worm is coded message. It's the sage's coded message for the truth. So you want to build the temple, you want to build your bodies, You're not going to whip your bodies into submission ever. You're not going to deceive your bodies into submission. You're not going to get your outer nations to bow down to YHWH except with the truth. Because this building up the temple is basically synonymous with the microcosmic building up of our own bodies. Okay, so at the microcosmic level, it's when we submit our own body's impulses to do evil to an impulse to do good and serve YHWH. And the only way that we can submit those forces are with the truth. Why? Because lies empower our bodies against our soul. Okay? It's the power that they have. It's the power of the serpent within. And as long as we've got lies in our mind and in the doctrination to which we've been born regarding the concept of Moshiach, we'll have lies, and we won't even understand that we have not attained a correction sufficient enough for our souls literally to dominate over our bodies. And what we see in the microcosmic, we'll see it in the macrocosmic. And it's all about truth. What truth? Od Yosef Chai. That's the ultimate truth that empowers our soul. It's just understanding that to the absolute depth that we must understand it. When connecting to these massive, wonderful concepts that we're now seeing revealed through this first opening verse of the book of Vayikra, and everything that's connected to the spring, the Barley, the Moshiach Ben Yosef, the sun, the moon, everything, it's all there. It's just uniting it all together in truth, in a very clear perspective, and then looking out as in the 6,000 years and finally seeing there is only YHWH and nothing else beside him. It's the ultimate truth that we are able to perceive through the concept of Od Yosef Chai. The ultimate goal is the name YHWH, just like the cycle of the Barley was 26 days. And it was all about Moshiach until we hit the 26 days, and it's all about YHWH. But we can't get to YHWH without that maturation that we achieve through the concept of Moshiach Ben Yosef. Okay? It's all glorious stuff. So as well is 201 is Yehi or let there be light. This is not just let there be light. It's the entire ordinal of the verse. And God said let there be light, and there was light. It comes to an ordinal of 201. Okay, so fear not, O worm of Yaakov. You want to see the light revealed, the hidden light revealed? You need to start paying attention to this concept that's linked up to spring and all what I've been talking about, and linked up to the truth. Give truth to Yaakov. For a long time my soul dwelt, and this is talking about King David dwelling in the tents of Kedar. And I've talked about how the concept of Moshe is exiled within Erev Rav, which is exiled within Rabbinic Judaism. The concept of Moshiach Ben Yosef, exiled into Christianity, exiled into Edomite exile, and the concept of Moshiach Ben David, exiled into the tents of Kedar, which are Mohammed came from the tribe of Kedar, in the religion of Islam. The concept of Moshiach Ben Yosef is to be found within Islam, because the Jewish people represent the name of YHWH, which is the light, the name of YHWH revealed within the letter of the Torah. They're predominantly the house of Yehuda. The Christians represent the name of YHWH revealed above the letter of the Torah. They're predominantly the lost house of Yosef. There are others beside. Okay, they two sticks need to be brought together. The light of the name YHWH. It needs a vessel to fit in. Where do we get the vessel from? We get the vessel from the nations, from Esav. Ramchal said the nations are split into 70 nations are split, 35 in Ishmael, 35 in Edomite. Okay? But within the religion of Islam, there is no name YHWH. Why? Because they're the vessel. King David represents the vessel. Moshiach Ben Yosef represents the light. Moshe represents the light. The light that needs to unite together in order to fill the vessels of Shalom. Where do we get the vessels of Shalom from? Through rectifying Esav. The Gematria for Esav, which represents the 70 nations, is 376. What's the Gematria for Shalom? 376. Where do we get Shalom from? When we rectify Esav. What have the Muslim people been doing in this world? Exactly that. but where did they get a lot of their doctrine from, their religion from? They got it from Christianity. Where did Christianity get it from? Judaism. So it's been a big cycle in order to produce ultimately a light that will fit into fitting vessels, a united name of YHWH that will be able to be received by all of humanity. Okay, and the Muslims have been very much a big part of that, because there's only YHWH and nothing else beside him. So he hasn't taken 1 billion people in this world and just wasted their entire life doing nothing. Everything has a great purpose. Everything has a glorious purpose, because everything is ultimately the result of the Creator, who is YHWH. We just can't see that because we're so immature. We just see evil. We need to get to a place where we're able to have messianic consciousness, where we're starting to see YHWH beyond the evil that is the facade. So for a long time my soul dwelt. That's just giving us indication from within the Tehillim. This is Tehillim 120. This is just letting us know exactly where Moshiach Ben David is dwelling for a long time. Where? In the tents of Kedar. Because he is the vessel of Shalom. He will utter, Moshiach Ben David will utter in Shalom. He will unify the names together that are then able to be received by the entire of the nations and all humanity. Everybody will bow to the name YHWH, and everybody will be able to confess with their tongues, that YHWH is King. Asaph gathered. This is quite significant. Well, it's connected up to the concept of the new moon, but Asaph means gathered, and this I can't go into it in too much detail, but it's also a little bit related to Yosef, isn't it? At least those two letters are the same, two similar letters to Yosef. But 141 is the regular of Emunah. 102 plus 39 is the ordinal of Emunah. Add them together comes 141. So this is something to do with Emunah, which is faith, the rectification of faith. We are rectifying our faith in the name YHWH. We are rectifying our faith. There's 13 aspects to the faith, and it's primarily the last two. It's the faith in the coming of the Moshiach and faith in the resurrection of the dead. Swept them away that ancient brook. Okay, these are the initial letters, a Kuf, Nin, Nun, Gimel, which is 153. This is basically the 153 fishes in the dragnet, and I've gone on about that teaching loads and loads and loads, and it's related to the concept of who has ascended into heaven and descended, and that is the concept of the Moshiach, the servant of YHWH, who ascended into heaven. Both Moshe and Yeshua ascended into heaven and both descended, and it's also, according to the Zohar, linked to the concept of Yonah Hanavi. He's the Jonah the prophet, the one that descended. Eliyahu Hanavi is the one that ascended. Eliyahu Hanavi is the prophet that reveals Moshiach Ben David. Yonah Hanavi is the prophet that reveals Moshiach Ben Yosef. Without that revelation, there is no Moshiach Ben David. It's as simple as that. Moshiach Ben David sits on the throne of Moshiach Ben Yosef. So the entire Torah, that's the word for Torah, 611 is the Gematria for Torah. The entire Torah can be understood through the concept of the Kof, Nun, Gimel, 153. And it also spells Korona, Gam. There's another place in the Tanakh where those initial letters are used. The initial letters are used in the right order, Kof, Nun, Gimel. This is backwards. Kof, Nun, Gimel. That entire Torah can be understood through the concept of Moshiach Ben Yosef, because Moshiach Ben Yosef is the secret of the entire Torah, because Sod spelt out, Samech, Vav, Daleth, Sod spelt out comes to 566, which is Moshiach Ben Yosef. Okay, there's all kinds of connections, but there you go. We know from this that it's all connected to Moshiach Ben Yosef. Of the new moon in its month throughout the months of the year. So again, this is related to the concept of the new moon. Comes to 174. From the age of 20 and upwards, this is in 23 times exactly in this, as this is written, which, so this 128 times 23 is 28,014, which is 161 times 174. So this is related to all this, and then it's related also to that who has ascended into heaven and descended, because the initial letters here are exactly the same as who has ascended into heaven, Shemayim were Yered, descended, and they spell Me'esav, to show that from Esav, the Moshiach descended into Esav, and he needs redeeming from Esav. The ordinal of Me'esav is 56, which is the ordinal of Teshuvah. He needs returning from this, the fact that the concept of Moshiach Ben Yosef is trapped in Edomite exile. He needs redeeming from this. He needs redeeming in truth. Okay, from Esav. And again, we've got the 201, which is, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. Okay, so they died in the wilderness from the age of 20 and upwards, but they was also included in the army from the age of 20 and upwards. Okay, so, and there was also counted in the census and things from the age of 20 and upwards as they came out of Egypt. So there's all kinds of links to the Pesach and to the one who ascended into heaven and descended. It's all linked up. Okay, and this is okay. When does he need redeeming from Esav? From when does the Moshiach Ben Yosef need redeeming from Esav? When you see the Kofnit Nun Gimel, they call out now. Corona Gam call out now also. When we've got the wicked plague, the evil plague of the coronavirus, and I talk about that loads, so I don't really need to go over that again. Let's go back. Or forward, let's see. Right, so I think we've just gone through all these, haven't we? Just wait a minute. Okay, I've pulled this. This is the next slide along. Just finishing off this 291. Then the ransomed of the Lord will return and come to Zion with a glad song. So this Zion, this is an appellation from Moshiach Ben Yosef. And again, we've got the 1164, which we've previously seen, 4 times 291. Okay. And then this is a defective spelling of Esav. We've been talking about Esav needing rectifying. Well, this is a spelling out of Esav. And really, that Aleph should be a Yud filled out. I've put here, I did it, there was a couple of fillings out that I did, and I changed the Yud into an Aleph, and it came up to some phenomenal Gematria, so I just stuck with it. I thought, all right, I just had an inspiration and I just did it, and I thought the numbers are absolutely wonderful. So it's actually a defective second spelling of Esav, but we are used to defects in the Torah. Vav filled with an Aleph instead of a Yud. The hand, which is representing the letter Yud of Esav, needs transforming into light Aleph, a revelation. So that was my inspiration for doing it. It was a long time ago, but there's something in that, because we've got to transform Esav. Esav's very useful. It can be utilised to serve YHWH. Obviously, without Esav, without a body, we have no way to serve YHWH anyway. So we might as well transform that. All our body's impulses, we might as well transform that into serving YHWH in thought, word and deed. Because without our bodies, we're not able to serve YHWH. So we've got to transform some aspect of him. If you can remember when Yaakov went in dressed up as Esau, Yitzhak said, the hands are the hands of Esau, and the voice is the voice of Yaakov. I think he said the voice is the voice of Yaakov, and the hands are the hands of Esau. So we know Esau is related to the hand, and the letter Yud is related to the hand. So something about that needs transforming, doesn't it? Okay, from evil to good, from selfish to altruistic, to please the Creator, for the sake of pleasing the Creator, not ourselves. And God made 2 great luminaries, the great luminary to rule the day and the lesser luminary to rule the night, and the stars. Comes to 5,820. Okay, which is, again, it's related to that, isn't it? It's, how many times? So 10 times that would be 20 times 291. Okay, there's some other big numbers involved in this, but I haven't got time to go through them all. The 834 is 6 times Yonavi. I told you he is the prophet that reveals Moshiach Ben Yosef. These words we come across all the time. The moon is related to Moshiach Ben David, the son to Moshiach Ben Yosef. Okay, but as you can see, this is the defective spelling of the Ma'orot. Ha-Ma'oroth is missing two vavs. Okay, so it's that word there, Ha-Ma'oroth. Ha-Ma'oroth is defective. And we need to work below to reveal that truth that rectifies these defective luminaries. That's our work to do in these 6,000 years. Okay. And then we've got bitachon. This has got a mispagadol of 8,710. We're going to have a look at that number in a minute. 1009, what stood in our way, opposing a true revelation of the Moshiach? Satan. Because 1009 is Satan, Satan, with a mispagadol, where the final letter nun of Satan is 700. It comes to 1009. We go across that number all the time in my teachings. The 899, we've got to reach a state of bitachon, absolute trust in the name YHWH. Okay, to overcome the evil inclination. So this is the regular ordinal, comes to 114, that's the mispagadol, and the mispagadol ordinal comes to 775. If we add those two together, the two ordinals together, comes to 89. What's 89? It's the ordinal of YHWH, which is synonymous with Asaph. We've got to subdue our evil impulses to serve ourselves, and subdue them and bring about shalom between body and soul, where we are both body and soul desiring to serve YHWH for the sheer sake of revealing his name, or to bring our creator pleasure. We can also see bitachon, which is this number, and this number, the 889, is related to this. Okay, so conceptually it's related to overcoming the power of Satan and the evil inclination, and also directly to these luminaries that are in a diminished state. Let's go and have a quick look at this. So this is the concept of the Dreidel. Okay, Nes Gadol Hayasham, a great miracle happened there. So this is the Dreidel outside of Eretz Israel, in the diaspora, in exile. Okay, that's the regular and the ordinal of a great miracle happened there. Comes to 621, which is 3 times or, 3 times light. The initial letters, Nes Gadol Hayasham, come to 358, which is exactly the same as Moshiach. The ordinal comes to 43, which is exactly the same ordinal as Asaph. Okay. These, however, have got the exact same Gematria as the serpent, 358 plus 43. In exile, the serpent is in control because the lies are in control, because exile is the difference between reaching that spiritual maturity where we are aware of the truth regarding the concept of Moshiach Ben Yosef. And we are connected to the Aviv, what we're just talking about, the spring, the dawn of redemption. Okay, so in exile, the serpent dominates. The serpent dominates over the concept of Moshiach. The lies dominate over the truth. If we take the 513, which is the regular, plus add on the initial letters of the Dreidel, or the Moshiach, will come to 871. If we take the 621, which is the regular and the ordinal, and then add that onto the Moshiach, it comes to 979, which is 11 times 89. And I've already said 89 is the ordinal of YHWH. These are now taken from the Vilna Gaon, from Kol Hator. Okay, he said this word to conceal a matter, hastar devar, from Proverbs 25:2, equals 871. And he pointed that out. He mentioned that, and I think he might have connected it up to this. I'm not 100% sure now, but I know that he mentioned that to conceal a matter comes to 871. The ordinal of to conceal a matter is 88, and the ordinal of 88 is Yeshua, 53 plus Yonah, the prophet that reveals Moshiach Ben Yosef. If we add those up together, 871 plus 88, it comes to 959. 959 is Yeshu spelt out with a missing vav. Okay, with the vav missing, the truth missing. Okay, if we add the Vav to it, we get these numbers, 971, and if we add a Kalel for each of the filled letters, we get 979, which takes us back to here. Okay, and he stands opposite the powers of the serpent to conceal the concept of Moshiach. When we've got the truth of Yeshu, the true concept of Moshiach Ben Yosef suffering with his in exile, we then have the power to defeat this force, okay, that represents the serpent in charge during exile. Okay, oops, I think we've already gone past that, haven't we? So, it's this one I should have pressed. So that explains that connects to this here, this luminaries, and we've just seen the 871 that Vilna Gaon mentioned. Okay, let's go. Oh, no, I don't think we've reached that place yet, have we? No, sorry about this. We've got one more totally, utterly glorious slide to look at. I think I'll actually go back and show you where I get this from. So we had this verse, and I said I would go look at this number 321, and he called to Moshe, and the Lord spoke to him from the tent of meeting, saying. So hopefully, yeah, we've got it right in the right order now. So this is Moshiach Ben Yosef. Right, before we get to there, we're pointing back to the concept of Moshiach Ben Yosef. That's a square ordinal of Moshiach Ben Yosef. Okay, comes to 1624. It'll all be clear very soon. The first time, I'm going to bring this up, the first time in the entire Torah where there is a phrase that equals 1624 is this here. And God made the expanse, and it separated between the water that was below the expanse and the water that was above the expanse, and it was so. Okay, and that word "and made," that first word here, is the first time we've got a word that equals 386 in the Torah, and that can be rearranged to spell Yeshua. Okay, so we're clear that this is relating to concept of Moshiach Ben Yosef. The expanse and the water that was above the expanse, 1624. And I've put there, first phrase in Torah that equals 1024. Okay, I just had to tidy that up because I had the next line starting at the wrong place. So there we go, we've got a link to this and Moshiach Ben Yosef. The ordinal of it, the regular of it, and the regular of the Mispar Gadol comes to 642. Okay, which is connected to 321 of the verse that we've just been looking at, Vayikra, the beginning of the book of Leviticus. Okay, and then we've also got this connected to this concept, and you will bite his heel, where ata shufenu okev. So this is the concept of this is a curse between the serpent and the seed of Eve. Let's go and have a look at the actual verse. And I shall place hatred between you and between the woman, and between your seed and between her seed. He will crush your head, and you will bite his heel. Okay, so I've pointed this out, Lords. The letters in between both of these words to crush his head and bite his heel are Shin Vav Peh, and Shin Vav Peh comes to 386, which is Yeshua. Okay, what do we get bitten by ultimately? Well, the concept of Yeshua crushes the head of the serpent, but the false concept of Yeshua, the false concept of Moshiach Ben Yosef, is what bites our heel. It causes separation, and it hides the name YHWH ultimately. That's why it bites us as well. And we can see that that's related to this. The expanse of the water was above the expanse, and the water that was above the expanse. So that comes to, the Mispar Gadol comes to 3,166, which is 2 times 1,583. And that comes to the regular and ordinal 1,583. Okay, so that's how it's connected there. And then we've got this one connected to, at the end of 2 full years, that Pharaoh was dreaming. Okay, which is from the verse that ultimately brings Yosef out from the pit and establishes him as Pharaoh's viceroy. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh was dreaming, and behold, he was standing by the Nile. Okay, so this is the whole 2000 millennia since it was in 2 years. I talk about it all the time. 2 years because of the 2 words that he uttered to the cupbearer, remember me to Pharaoh and take me out. They cost him 2 years in prison for 2 aspects of a lack of faith, just as we're in 2000 years of exile for 2 aspects of a lack of faith in the coming of Moshiach and faith in the resurrection of the dead. So we're in this exile to correct our emunah. At the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh was dreaming, and then if we see these here, there's the red letters spell Moshiach. Okay, so this calculation is based on just the letters, just the words where the letters spell Moshiach. Okay, 1417. Who is with Moshiach that we're talking about? Moshiach Ben Yosef, the one who will ultimately become like the viceroy of YHWH here on earth. Who forms light and creates darkness, who makes peace and creates evil. That comes to an ordinal of 321. Let's go have a look at the actual verse. Who forms light and creates darkness, who makes peace and creates evil. I am the Lord who makes all of these. I've done teachings on this verse. It's absolutely wonderful. You can go look at them. They're brilliant. Reveals loads about the concept of Moshiach. This is none other than the house of God. So this is Yaakov on Mount Moriah. And he was frightened and he said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. Okay, so there's loads and loads of coded messages in there. As we can see, it's linked to this whole concept, and ultimately we're trying to establish the third temple again, where we reach our next level of maturity, the full level of maturity, and Moshiach Ben David is revealed, and then the Beis HaMikdash is revealed again. The final temple is revealed. Okay. A tree of the field, we come across this concept a lot. That's got a Mispar Gadol of 1284, which is 4 times 321. Okay, let's go and have a look at this verse. This is quite a long verse actually. And when you besiege a city for many days to wage war against it to capture it, you shall not destroy its trees by wielding an axe against them, for you may eat from them, but you shall not cut them down. Is the tree of a field a man to go into the siege before you? And actually the Hebrew is ki ha'adam eitz hatzodeh, because man is a tree of the field, and it's no doubt relating to the righteous in the land in which you are besieging, the righteous people of the land that you are besieging. Okay, I've done teachings on that a bit before. This is also connected to the concept of Moshiach because it's 474, which is Da'ath. Da'ath is the level of Da'ath, which is a level of knowledge. We've got to reach a complete knowledge of the name YHWH. The knowledge of YHWH has got to fill the entire earth as the waters cover the sea. Okay, and sometimes we gain that knowledge from studying the Torah, and sometimes we gain that from, our experiences actually in the field. We are in the field, hopefully, of the Holy Shekinah, and gaining understanding about the way YHWH works, and we should, through our experience of life, it should lead us to a true revelation of the name YHWH. And sometimes, because we have been indoctrinating with the lies in which we have inherited, we're interpreting that experience of life wrong. We should be able to dwell in this world and assess the entire of human history and be able to perceive that there's only YHWH and nothing else beside him, but the lies that we've inherited regarding the concept of Moshiach, the lies that we've inherited prevent that from happening. So we have blind spots. We look in and we don't fully understand because it doesn't align to the lies that we've inherited. We've got to really take our actual experience, what we have experienced in this field, out in the field, the experience of our life, what does that conclude to us? Is it something different from what we've been told? And if it is, have we got a basis for that understanding in Torah? And if our experience out in the field aligns with what is revealed in the Torah, it's probably going to be the truth. you know, but we've got to get to a certain level where our ability to perceive reality, perceive the name YHWH is rectified. What was its name was already called. Okay, so this is taken from Ecclesiastes. What was its name was already called, and it is known that he is a man, and he will not be able to strive with him who is stronger than he. This is a little bit related to the concept of Moshe being the first redeemer and the one being the second redeemer, because it starts with Ma She She or Yo. And there's another verse in Ecclesiastes which starts with those same words, but it's basically what was is what will be, and those initial letters spell Moshe, and it's basically telling you Moshe was the first redeemer, Moshe will be the last redeemer. Okay, so it's connected to the fact that Moshe is the first and he will be the last. He was the soul of, basically Moshe is the soul of Moshiach. Moshe is also Yeshua. The soul is the same soul. It's the soul of Moshiach, but just at different levels. And then the final revelation of Moshiach will be Moshiach Ben David. It's just one soul of Moshiach, and we all are part of that. Then the ransomed of the Lord will return. We've already gone through that. That comes to regular and ordinal 642. Which are 2 times 321 or 6 times 107. 107 is significant in and of itself, because 7 times 107 is Yeshua HaMashiach, the regular of Yeshua HaMashiach. Right, so let's go and have a look at this verse in context. And the ransomed of Zion shall return. This is an appellation for Moshiach Ben Yosef, because Zion has got the exact Gematria of 158, which 156, which is Yosef. And the ransomed of Zion shall return, and shall come to Zion with song and joy of days, with joy of days of yore shall be upon their heads. They shall achieve gladness and joy, and sadness and sighing shall flee. We await that day. Oops, let's go back. Before we come to that one, and we've got this concept of angel of his face. It's really related to a face-to-face relationship with YHWH. Obviously, we can't perceive YHWH face-to-face directly, but we are able to enter into a face-to-face relationship with YHWH, and somehow this angel of his face is a part of that experience in YHWH face-to-face. Okay, so that's 321 also linked to all these things. Back to Vayikra, that's the ultimate goal, to reach a face-to-face relationship with the name YHWH, to be able to perceive him face-to-face. That means that the external forces do not dominate and block and hinder, so that we've got a back-to-back relationship with YHWH, because what are we facing? We're face-to-face with the evil. That's what's in our minds. We see the evil, we can't see beyond the evil. We can't see the way that YHWH has been working in this darkness in order to perfect all of creation, to bring about a revelation of his name. We're in a back-to-back relationship with that. We're in a front-to-front relationship with evil. If we're front-to-front with evil, we're back-to-back with YHWH. Until we turn from evil and do good and start to perceive YHWH, there will be in a back-to-back relationship. This is ideal. We need to be face-to-face. Then we've got the Mispar Gadol of Adam, Chaya and David, which are, according to the sages, the word Echad, that reveals the Echad of YHWH, the oneness of YHWH, the absolute authority and sovereignty, that there is no evil in this world that will ultimately cause the name YHWH to be concealed. This evil will come to an end, and we will just see a revelation of the name YHWH. We're in a process of rectification, and that rectification is happening in a very hidden way. But ultimately, the ultimate goal of revelation, the ultimate goal of creation is to reveal the name YHWH. Okay, is oneness. Is oneness, which means his absolute sovereignty. There is only him. He's the only power. There is nothing else beside him. Okay, and that Echad is the initial letters of Adam, Chaya and David, spelled Echad. So we've got Adam, the Mispar Gadol, 23 for Chaya, 14 for David, comes to 642, which is 2 times 321, links us back to that. The ultimate goal of it all, the ultimate goal of Moshiach is to reveal the Echad of YHWH. And as we can see, this has been from the very beginning, okay, the very beginning of creation. And then we've got this, to attack, pray, he devoured men. And this is linked again to Tref Yosef. Yosef was surely torn to pieces. That's exactly the same words used to describe Yosef, the coat that was presented to Yitzchak. To Yaakov. So we've got a connection there. Let's go and have a look at the verse. Oops. So that's is, and she raised up one of her cubs. He was a young lion. He learned to attack, pray. He devoured men. And like I say, this is connected to Yerushalayim, you know, and the false prophets or the conspiracy of the prophets. Can't go into too many details, but basically, something has allowed Moshiach Ben Yosef to appear as completely torn. You know, just as there was a conspiracy headed up by Yehuda, by the way, regarding Yosef. Okay, there's a conspiracy to make him out as if he died, and there's a conspiracy to make out as if Moshiach Ben Yosef, Yeshua, is not the Mashiach. Okay, the truth will out. The truth will out, and the lies will be no more. And he who appears to be completely torn, and this is, you know, well, I can't speak about it now, but if the one who appears to be completely torn, it will, through him we will have our faith rectified, in YHWH, the coming of the Moshiach, and in the resurrection of the dead, because he did actually die. He will need to be resurrected, and he will be resurrected as Moshiach Ben David. Okay, so will Moshe. It's all one concept. And he's resurrected even in our life. He will come to, the more we transform the lies we've inherited into the truth and align that to true reality, what we've experienced, what history has told us, what we're able to see with our own eyes, and link that up to the revelation of the Moshiach of YHWH, what is revealed in the Torah. You know, the more that our own souls will illuminate with that truth and resonate with that truth, and we'll be on that higher level of consciousness ourselves. And this is we want to mature. So this also goes back not just to Vayikra, but on the first. Again, we're talking about the spring. On the day of the first month, on the first of the month, you shall set up the Mishkan of the tent of meeting. So we've got that from Exodus 42. So talking about the temple and the tabernacle in the wilderness again, that's related to the temple. It's all one wonderful concept. We're basically waiting for that time where the complete authority of YHWH is finally revealed on earth through Moshiach, the coming of Moshiach Ben David. But he only comes as a result of a certain maturation process and a certain you know, where we are conscious of what YHWH has been doing through the Moshiach of Moshiach Ben Yosef through these last 2,000 years, and how that's related to the entire 6,000 years of human history and the rectification of all creation, and that is able to receive that YHWH desires to give. So it's all connected. It's all connected there. I have placed the Lord before me constantly. Because he is at my right hand, I will not falter. So this is YHWH face to face. It's absolutely critical. We've got to attain this in order to perceive reality with any measure of truth whatsoever. Okay. And finally, with that, I will say shalom. I'll ask you to subscribe. I'm going to go into more details regarding this concept of Aviv. So I'd like you to come on that journey with me. Just really enjoy this. It's the time of our redemption. It's with us now. It's upon us now, and we should be able to mature and grow in order to finally leave these places of exile that we've been exiled to behind. Okay, shalom.